Well, let's get back to the war machine problem. When we saw yesterday, I want to get your take on the Pete Hegseth situation and how that
Mhm.
unfolded, because I think there's something going on, something being said, something not being said. But let's just catch the viewers up with what happened yesterday. There was an accidental, well, I'm going to put in quotes, accidental. I think I got it on the banner here. So Pete Hegseth accidentally leaks Trump war plans in Yemen. This was on a Signal chat, and the leak comes because there was a person on the chat. It was Jeffrey Goldberg from the Atlantic. He's the editor at the Atlantic, and he was on the group chat as these messages came out. And Jeffrey Goldberg, we'll get to him in a moment, what he did and the timeline there, but he did eventually share this publicly. And so these are some of the conversations that happened that he was fully involved with. If you think we can do this, this is J.D. Vance talking to Pete Hegseth. If you think we can do this, let's just go. I hate bailing out Europe. They're talking about risks and up front to minimize risk of Saudi oil facilities. We should do it. And we're talking about this is a discussion about bombing and striking the hell out of Yemen, which we know has already happened. So this is the conversation leading up to that as they're discussing the timing of such a strike that would happen with our American tax dollars, with our weapons. We will make sure that we attack Yemen at the exact time we need to do it. They're going back and forth some more here. And what I really thought was really ridiculous is the end. They're doing these emojis. Excellent, a good start, fist bump, America first, fire. Good job, Pete, and your team. The team in Mao did a great job as well. Great work, all powerful stuff. So as soon as this was leaked through the Atlantic, through the Jeffrey Goldberg, who was on the chat, and he had this information, screen grabbed it, put it out there. They made sure Trump got a natural reaction to this. He didn't know this was happening. I want to play this. I thought this was pretty funny. Sounds like he's finding out about it in real time. Here's Trump finding out about it, and he didn't know this happened. It's kind of funny. Here we go.
To the story of the Atlantic that said that some of your top cabinet officials and aides had been discussing very sensitive material through Signal and included an Atlantic report. What is your response to that?
I don't know anything about it. I'm not a big fan of the Atlantic. To me, it's a magazine that's going out of business. I think it's not much of a magazine, but I know nothing about it. You're saying that they had what?
They were using Signal to coordinate.
He's bad at that.
Sensitive materials and
Having to do with what?
Yeah.
Having to do with what? What were they talking about?
With the Houthis.
You
Ooh.
mean the attack on the Houthis?
It's just embarrassing, to be quite honest.
It's so embarrassing, but he does the thing he always does, which he says, I don't, that's a crappy paper. I don't read it.
Yeah,
It's a deflection tool. He goes to that, but he didn't have any idea this was happening. And I think
I don't buy that.
no, or maybe he did. Okay. So maybe he did have an idea. He did look like he was thrown off. He didn't have something prepared at least.
Yeah,
The
but
part that I'm focused on here is how the mainstream media spins this. And we've seen this before. We saw this in his previous administration. When you had a leak, you had a conversation between Trump and discussing privately, but it was on tape, that he was talking about Mike Pompeo and secrets of military operations in Syria. And we didn't want, and the reporting of it is always specifically about not calling out the U.S. war machine, the Israel war machine. It's always about condemning the person for leaking it because it's valuable information about the good guys getting it right, and we don't want the bad guys finding out about it. And that's their spin. They don't ever critique the thing that's actually being revealed, which is our dubious military operations and how we high five and fist bump about who we're going to bomb next without ever going to Congress. We don't do that anymore. We just do it.
Right.
We just do
Right.
the strikes,
It's
and
crime.
no one's talking
Yeah.
about that part.
Yeah, that's a crime. I mean, that's a major crime. I mean, but let's be real. That hasn't happened since World War II. Nobody cares. Like these are larger examples, and to be clear, of Congress authorizing any kind of warfare, right? That's supposed to be how this works. But that's a bigger example, and there are many of them that show you that we don't live in the world we think we do, guys. These are old ideas that they don't even care about anymore, but they know that we care about them, so they continue to allow us to think that's how this works, right? The bottom line is, I don't know for sure. I don't think anybody knows for sure whether this was an accident they're using, never let a good crisis go to waste. But I mean, look, my personal opinion, it's completely my opinion, is that this seems impossible to believe. I think it's absurd. And as always, and let's not forget, by the way, on a side note, there's, I think, probably 3 examples I could bring up just to make it quick. The Enemies Alien Act, or I think, is it Aliens Enemy Act? Either way, the act we're talking about, do they use to deport all these people from Venezuela, is that he publicly recently said, after it started getting really clear that there's a major legal issue with that, he said, I didn't sign it. I don't know who signed it. He literally signed it. His name is literally on it. He signed it, right? Or at the very least, somebody else did. AutoPen, that whole overlap conversation is funny. But what's funny, that, and I don't think that's the case. I think he obviously signed it. That's very clear. But what's interesting is he played it off like he didn't. And then the person was like, well, clearly you signed it. Or rather, I think he followed up with Rubio, or it wasn't Rubio, it was his spokesman. And they basically said, no, he was referring to the 1972 or 1792. Oh, sure, because Trump wanted to make sure we weren't confusing that he didn't sign the act in 1792. Right. Guys, it's ridiculous, right? So he's trying to distance himself, at least publicly, so his followers know the talking point. And then he pointed to Rubio, which is interesting to me. Rubio's the one that did it. He's in charge. And then Rubio did it back to him. No, it's president's direction. So they're both trying to deflect to each other. My point is, coming back to this, it's very obvious to me. And hold on, I just lost so the leaking is that the way Trump responded right there, it's the way he does this. Are we really going to pretend that he's not aware of this? I mean, it's been everywhere. It's all in the news. Everyone's talking about it. And he claims he reads on these papers, which he already knows about this. Are we to believe that the Secretary of Defense is going to find out that they had a leaked conversation, if that's really what happened, and the president wouldn't know about that? Either that shows you a shocking gap of information flow, or they're just playing it off like it didn't matter because, and this is what I ultimately think, it's very clearly being set for us, right? Because you made a good point there. This is exactly what this always does. And also, let's recognize how the media, despite how the claim is they're going after Trump, never really go after the real picture. They go after what you're pointing out, which is a limited part of it, which is that, so they present this fake back and forth, which I think is just childishly obvious. And then what does that do? It's not about whether they went to war without Congress or whether they're illegally bombing civilians in a massive war crime. It's about why we shouldn't have let this leak happen. Let's shut down the flow of information because that's national security. Or you get the debate, right, about the manner in which they talked about this, or never is it about should we be bombing civilians in Yemen, right? And that's kind of the way this goes. So without even realizing it, you've skipped right over whether it should be happening and debating about how it should be happening. It's just so basic. And I think this is what they do. And sadly, a lot of people fall for it because it is entertaining. Because right now, a lot of people will jump at any shadow that suggests that Trump looks bad. It's Trump derangement syndrome on both sides of the paradigm. They're either obsessed with him where they ignore everything that's bad, or they're obsessed with him where they ignore everything that's good. And, it's just constant. Yeah, that's what I think this is, though.
This Trump derangement syndrome is a problem because people who generally would be anti-war and be suspicious of this type of stuff are going to be told how to be mad. And this is the thing you need to be mad about. And this is how you're going to respond. And you're just going to regurgitate the thing we're talking about. I think it's important our viewers see this because we don't watch this crap. You guys that are watching us, you don't watch this crap. So you forget about how that propaganda works. This is how they do it. This is on MSNBC. This is this is the governor, J.B. Pritzker, Democrat governor, who's telling you how to be mad at this. Not for you to make up your own decision about what to be upset about. He's going to tell you the thing to be upset about. Listen to the language he uses.
So much happening every day, and I just have to ask you about the story we've been talking about throughout the show, which is this reporting by Jeffrey Goldberg about him being included on a signal chain with sensitive national security information, including war plans. What was your reaction to that story?
I am outraged by this. This is, of all the things that we've been talking about, Medicaid, Social Security, Medicare, all the cuts that are affecting people's lives. We're talking now about our military. We're talking now about our national security has been compromised because they're using a texting app to share plans about how they're going to attack the Houthis abroad. If someone had been on that chain that hadn't been a patriotic American like Jeffrey Goldberg, if someone who wanted to maybe get something out of it had been on that chain, it would have gone abroad. It would have been broadcast to other people. The Houthis would have known that our soldiers, our pilots were coming, and their lives would have been lost. So this is not, we're not kidding around anymore. The confusion that they're causing, the chaos that they're causing, the Trump administration, that is now gone to the Defense Department, our intelligence agencies, and is being effectuated so that our military is being put at risk and our national security is being put at risk. We can't stand this any longer. I mean, Pete Hegseth, which everybody knows he's unqualified to be the defense secretary, is responsible here. Donald Trump should fire Pete Hegseth.
Okay, so
that's what it comes down to.
Protecting the military industrial complex, always right. Protecting we're the ones we're the good guys. No regard for the civilians we're going to kill on purpose in Yemen. Right. Just we're putting our people in danger. Okay, but this is very important. As he's calling the Atlantic editor, Jeffrey Goldberg, an American patriot, he's the guy who held on to this. He's the guy who did not release this until after the Yemen strike. As WikiLeaks points out, why did Atlantic editor Jeffrey Goldberg sit on the Yemen chat group transcripts when he might have saved 53 lives and changed government policy by publishing it when it was most impactful before the bombing started? So Goldberg clearly knew the group was real based on the valid signal, because he had said that, I didn't know if it was real yet. I had to check it out. No, he knew it was real. And he shows, and he takes the screenshots, and he waits for, he waits for the right time, which is after the strikes, to put it out. And then you got these a-holes on MSNBC telling us that he's the American hero, and Pete Hegseth and Trump are compromising, us, our defense, right, our secrets,
which they are in plenty of ways, right? But this is not one of them, in my opinion.
This is not one of them. This is not the thing to be mad. As you said, Ryan, this is not the thing to be mad at Trump about. So this is how you trick people with the Trump Ranger syndrome. It's too bad we can't get angry about the right thing. What's your take on this? How do we get the right conversation going?
There's two parts to include. Is that Jeff himself is, and this let's be clear. Just because somebody is Israeli, for example, or has connection to Israel, it's not an obvious, they are compromised or they're part of the problem. There's plenty of Israelis out there today and Jews and other people that are calling out all that's happening. Let's not forget how obvious and a growing faction that is. Maybe the majority today. It's hard to tell, but there's a huge amount of people today in Israel in particular, or Orthodox Jews in the world, that are screaming about what's going on. It's genocide and so on. But the point is, Jeff apparently worked with the IDF, actually went and worked as some kind of security guard. The point is that he has very clear overlap with Israel. So I find it really fascinating. You have Hegseth, who is a proud Zionist, who is adamantly like biblical Zionist, like screaming about their biblical right to all these places. And another person who is like went out of his way to work in the military in Israel, and we're acting like there's some kind of overlap here, but they're like on a different side, or that they're fighting against the. I mean, both of them, in my opinion, if you come down to what this is really about, maybe they don't even know this, are actively supporting the ongoing military-industrial complex, if you want to make it specific to the United States, right? But Israel is immersed in that conversation. I mean, if not completely in control of it. I mean, listen to Jeffrey Sachs just rattle off undeniably provable facts over the last 20 years that show you that we have been, and it's not just Jeffrey Sachs just pointing to it all, but he has a lot of good kind of clips out there right now. It's evidence that we've all been talking about, that we've been fighting, the government of the U.S. has been fighting Israel's wars for decades. It's not hard to see, and so when they do this, back to the point we were making, all of it does is cement the idea that this is going to continue happening, and we're going to debate about how we get information around it. And ultimately, what's the point? From both sides of this, that it's about the control of information for national security. They're both essentially arguing the same thing. They're just pointing at the different. No, it's Jeff that's the good guy. No, it's Hegseth the good guy. It's a false binary within a false binary. That seems like everything that we're dealing with today. Yeah. Let's not forget also that they've been bombing Yemen for decades. Okay, this is not new. It's not like Yemen, like his point about whether they could have saved lives or WikiLeaks. I mean, it's certainly fair that they might have been able to save some of them on, but they're aware, right? They know what's going on. They've been starved and bombed, and I mean, it's horrifying what's going on there. And it has been going on a long time. So it's not new. It's not unique to this administration. This wasn't some new development. They've been bombing that place forever. So that's important to think about. So go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no. And I'm glad you, and to circle back to that, this is the thing they use each time. And we saw them do the same thing, this fake reaction of, can you believe Trump was discussing the Pompeo discussion and he knew it was not classified? He said, I should have declassified it and I didn't, but I'm going to tell you anyway. The nerve of the guy. with no regard for what were they talking about. They were talking about our foreign policy, our destructive foreign policy, invading foreign countries, stealing their resources, illegally occupying, murdering people. No regard for that. And that's exactly what we're seeing here again, is there's no regard for what are we actually doing in Yemen? Why are we striking them? Nobody will tell you on mainstream, but that's why we're here, to have these conversations and do what journalism is supposed to be about. We're supposed to be challenging the thing that got revealed. We're supposed to be challenging that thing, not the person who revealed it. Oh, I can't believe he revealed. No, what is the thing that got revealed? So let's have that discussion.